Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Produce Moms Podcast, and we are going to have a great episode today. My name is Lori Taylor, and as always, it's so much fun to host this show. I mean, I get to bring on my friends and people who have believed in me and empowered the journey and who have taught me so much. And today's guest is no exception to all those things. We are welcoming Kevin Stanger. He is the president of Wada Farms Marketing Group. Kevin and the whole team at Wada Farms have just been such incredible catalysts for the Produce Moms growth and our ability to learn more about potatoes and educate our audience on how potatoes are grown, sweet potatoes, and just all things potatoes. And that's what today's episode is about. So Kevin, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Lori. It's great to be here from the warm state of Idaho. And I'm kind of being facetious there. We're experiencing a good winter here, but it's great to be here. And likewise with the sentiments that you shared with Wada Farms, it's been a great partnership with the Produce Mom. You've have taught us many things in addition to of what you do and what you provide to the consumers out there in the marketplace. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, Kevin, I always remember that day that me, you, and Eric Beck met for dinner, and when you guys were in Indianapolis, Indiana, for one of the Walmart vendor meetings that you had, and we met, and you know what? Tonight, my husband and I are going to that same restaurant, so I'll be thinking about you again when we're dining out.
Thank you. I will be thinking of you too. It's a great restaurant.
It's a great restaurant, and I'm going to go on record right now. I know that this show will publish after Chip and I have our dining out experience tonight, but I am going to order every potato side that's on the menu in honor of our great moment where we met each other at the restaurant, and then of course this incredible episode today. But potatoes, it is really profound when people think about, they really are everywhere. I mean, the boys in my family would say it's the most perfect vegetable, Mom. It's like all they want to eat. But truthfully, when you think about just all of the challenges of 2020, potatoes are one of those. I found myself buying them more in the household, and I know that I've talked to you and other members of your team about this. I kind of found myself coming back to them. They have that comfort food. They store really well. They're so affordable. But then I also, knowing what I know about the, fresh produce economy and supply chain, I was thinking, man, with the restaurant shutdowns, what a tough amount of challenges that must have been for everyone that works in the potato industry, because it doesn't matter if you're at a fast food joint or a white tablecloth fine dining establishment, potatoes are there.
Absolutely. And the pandemic has, as I'm sure it has for everyone else, it's made you become a little more nimble in your business practices and what you do. Indeed, food service, and depending on the demographics in the markets, some have absolutely almost shut off, and others are going okay. I mean, they're definitely down. Mm-hmm. And so your restaurant and business catering, those kind of things have decreased a little bit, while in some cases a lot. And we've had to make modifications, but obviously the retail has skyrocketed this year as more people have had to eat out less and eat home more. So the retail segment has adapted to accommodate that shift, if you will. But like everyone else, we're anxious to get things kind of somewhat back to normal as quick as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I bet. So tell us a little bit more about Wada Farms, all the different types of potatoes that you grow and represent at Wada Farms Marketing Group, and, any of your favorite ways to use potatoes, feel free to throw them in as you're talking about all these different potato varieties.
Well, sure. First of all, just kind of an interesting story. Wada Farms was established clear back in 1943 by Frank Wada, who immigrated from Japan to the U.S. in 1922. And they initially started in California, in San Clemente, California. But when World War II broke out, they could see the writing on the wall as many Japanese Americans were being moved to internment camps. And so they decided to kind of move a little further west and ended up settling in Idaho and started farming in a little town called Pingree, Idaho. Mm-hmm. And they grew their first crop of Idaho potatoes on 160 acres of rented land in the spring of 1943. Since then, the company has obviously grown, where we now grow nearly 30,000 acres of farmland, of which about 10,000 of those acres are potatoes. Mm. And we're shipping into basically all 50 states and even doing some export in fresh potatoes. So that gives you a little bit of a history of Wada Farms and how it has grown and developed. Frank's son Albert took it over, and really during much of the major growth period. And now Albert's kind of semi-retired, and his son Brian Wada is the CEO over the company. So it's been kind of a fun ride. I've been with them over 26 years and handling their sales and marketing, and we've grown from just a little teeny kind of shed in Pingree and Blackfoot, Idaho, and to now we have just in our marketing office, 35 individuals. The farm employs and warehouse employs over 300 individuals, and then during harvest that increases by another 200. Wow! So it's become a pretty big operation. We do grow, obviously, the famous russet Idaho potatoes is probably first and foremost our biggest crop, but we are also
and
very
can I say it's probably
in,
the only that's the only famous potato. I mean, we're working on making all the varieties famous,
right.
But
that is true.
Yeah,
the Idaho is what's kind of Idaho is known for, and is definitely a staple, and one that I obviously enjoy many times a week are the famous russet Idaho potatoes. But we're also growing in others. I mean, we're growing reds, we're growing yellow potatoes, we're growing fingerlings. We have now organic potatoes, so we have organic russets, reds, yellows. We're growing what's called a chipper potato, which are the potatoes generally that they grow specifically to make potato chips with. But they're also now they're kind of a fad kind of a deal for restaurants and specifically bars to make fresh cut fries and fresh cut potato chips, which are kind of the new and upcoming thing. So we're kind of diversified in all those areas of potatoes, and have seen great growth in the colored varieties, the organics. That definitely has a place in today's marketplace, and so it's been kind of a fun ride over these years to see these things and the opportunities to grow these different types of potatoes.
Oh yeah. And I will tell you too, we eat so many of those fingerling potatoes in my household. Anytime we fire up our Traeger to smoke, whatever meat Chip wants to throw on there, we put at least one bag of those fingerling potatoes in a cast iron skillet and put them on the smoker with the meats. And oh my gosh, they are so good. I love them. The whole family does. Everyone loves them, but okay. So we've got to get into some of these potato fun facts, Kevin, because when Eric and I and Kristen were talking about this episode and bringing you on the show, we were thinking, okay, there's a lot that consumers just don't understand or appreciate with what goes into making a potato and something that is so accessible for all of us to enjoy. So let's talk about the life cycle first. Let's help people understand that, just how much of a year-round operation this is.
Sure. And it kind of varies from variety type of potatoes. So for instance, on your typical russet, your brown potatoes that people see in the stores, generally those are what's known as a fall crop potato. So we will start planting in April and goes through about middle of May is when the bulk of all the planting happens in Idaho and for the most part the other states. They grow then during the summer, and we start harvest late August through September and end within a week or two of October is generally the planting and the growing and the harvesting process of our russet potatoes. Red and yellow potatoes in Idaho, similar time frame. They just don't store as long as russets do. So those potatoes kind of have to be grown around different parts of the country to keep them fresh. The russet potatoes are harvested, put in storage again from about end of August through October. And when anyone's buying a russet potato during the winter months, spring and early summer, those generally are potatoes that have been put into large storage facilities where they're cooled. Their temperatures are brought down to basically put them in a dormant state. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of humidity pumped through these storages to keep them cold and crisp and fresh. And then they are brought out, washed and graded and put into bags and boxes and sent out to the retailers.
Throughout the year, like based on how much demand you need. Okay. So
correct.
Yeah, I mean, these potato sheds are enormous. I mean, they're much bigger than anyone's home. I mean, they're like bigger than a football field even almost, I feel like. I mean, help people understand what the size of these things are.
Well, so for instance, our main facility in Pingree, Idaho is 140,000 square feet.
Wow.
of facility.
Yeah.
So yes, it's quite large. Their potatoes are brought in either from the field at harvest or through the balance of the season. They're brought in obviously out of those storages, where they're washed and cleaned and graded through numerous types of equipment. These expensive sizing equipments that electronic read and see the size of the potatoes to get us different sizing. So if you go to different restaurants, they may order a different size, sometimes really big or smaller. And then obviously numerous automated bagging equipment to bag and seal the potatoes into retail bags that people buy at the stores. All that occurs at these. And then obviously once they're bagged and boxed, there's a holding facility which is kept at temperature regulated until the trucks show up, or rail cars in which we load them up and ship them out to the receivers from there.
Yeah. And I would say, so we have to kind of talk about the fact that, like, even though there is a defined time of the year when these potatoes are harvested and considered, the new crop was always the term that we used when I was at the sales desk. And I remember, like, it was a big deal when we got the new crop potatoes in and we were no longer selling the storage potatoes. But I think it's really important that we also point out, I mean, the technology of, our ability to store the potatoes and knowing like what temperature to drop it to, that's really allowed us and empowered us to be able to say potatoes are not a seasonal item. I mean, would you agree with that, Kevin? Or does the team at Wada Farms view potatoes as seasonal?
I would, especially the russets. Now you get into these colored varieties because they don't store as well. We can, for instance, a lot of the states that grow what we call the fall crop of colored potatoes, they grow the same time period russets do, and they will store until about March, April. And then their storage capability kind of runs out. And then you have to go to Florida, California, Texas, some of these southern states they will plant earlier. Actually, Arizona is a big colored production area. They will grow colored potatoes that will then supply the country from late spring through the summer until the new fall crop comes off on colored potatoes. So you still have a little bit of seasonability with the colored potatoes, but the russet potatoes, the major producing states, Idaho, Colorado, Washington, Wisconsin, the time periods are all the same. Everything goes into storage. and everything is coming out of storage and being shipped until the new crop that fall.
Yeah. And there's always plenty of supply where there's rarely a gap where consumers would even realize
Correct.
that. Yeah.
Realize a gap, and the technology to store and handle potatoes now is so much better than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And for anyone that's listening, I mean, you visit wadafarms.com. They have some video footage that can help you understand not only the scale of these storage facilities and capabilities that Kevin's talking about, but also just the scale of their farming operation. I know Kevin said 30,000 acres. I don't know. Is that the size of Indianapolis, Kevin? I feel like that's a huge amount of...
Well, exactly. It's a lot, and it's not all in one spot. I mean, it's kind of out a little bit. But You mentioned those storage facilities. Each one of those that we have will hold between 50 and 100,000 hundredweight, which basically is an average of 7.5 million pounds of potatoes for the 75. Well, we do everything in hundredweight, but we have over 50 of those facilities that each hold between 5 and 10 million pounds of potatoes that we will go through a season.
We can describe it, but I really think it's one of those things where it's like an unfathomable amount for folks to picture. And I will say, since I've got you on the podcast here, and I give Eric crap about this all the time. You know, Wada Farms, of all the growers we work with, we have the longest standing relationship with Wada Farms, yet I've never been there. So we are making that happen ASAP, where I'm going to come out and see this with my own eyes.
The invitation. I realize Idaho is usually not a drop off for anybody going anywhere, but you are always welcome. We'd love to have you.
Yes, and I'll go.
We're only an hour and a half from Jackson Hole, and there's some great places nearby. Yeah,
and I'm going to do fly fishing when I'm there too. I heard that's a must do, and maybe that's because Eric Beck is who I'm talking to. But regardless, I'm doing that too when I'm there.
That's part of it. Yes, that's part of it.
All right, so let's talk about what we want consumers to know, how it really, in terms of how to select, store, and serve your potatoes. So from a service perspective, I mean, my goodness, we have so many points of inspiration for you all at theproducemoms.com, wadafarms.com. You can visit the Idaho Potato Commission online, check out what they have on all the amazing ways you can get inspired to use Idaho potatoes. But I do want to talk, Kevin, more in detail about how we want people to store their potatoes at home, and also when they're at the grocery store, how do they know that they're buying a good potato?
Well, first of all, obviously, if they're looking for an Idaho potato, look for the bag that has Idaho, the Idaho seal, and the Idaho logo on the bag. But any potatoes, there's a couple misconceptions. One that people have. One is they'll sometimes see potatoes that are green, and I've had people think or called and asked me, well, geez, looks like these have been picked to ripe. And that is not the case. The reasons, number one, so when you're looking for potatoes, look for potatoes that don't have any green tint on them. That is caused from lighting. Mm-hmm. So if potatoes are left on a store shelf, if potatoes are left at home sitting on a shelf with your lights turned on, it only takes a matter of a couple days, if even that, and your potatoes will start getting a green tinge to them.
Yep.
It is fine. If there's too much, you can just cut that green off. It isn't poisonous. It's bitter, but that's what it's caused from. It's caused from light. And so the best thing is if a produce department is rotating their potatoes like they should, you should be able to go through and see potatoes that are firm and a good, firm, solid potato. You can look at the appearance, be sure there's no defects, and especially greening on your bulk displays, because potatoes that may not have been rotated that have just sat under the lights. If that's the case, maybe go down a little deeper and pick out some ones that have been covered so there's no greening to them. The perfect way to store potatoes is in the high 40s with good humidity. That's a little difficult in most people's homes. So honestly, the best place is to keep them dark and cool.
Mm-hmm.
So in some places that have basements or garages, that's the best place. People ask me about a refrigerator. I would tend not to put them in a refrigerator because refrigerators turn them a little sugary,
A little too cold,
and they turn the
right?
starches to sugars.
Yeah.
And so I realize in places down in the South, it makes it a little more difficult to hold potatoes for a longer time because of the heat. But honestly, you get potatoes that are kept cool and dark, they'll last for weeks. But once they start warming up, you'll notice people will say, yeah, these sprouts will start growing. Well, that's the natural tendency of a potato, is it wants to grow once it starts waking up, if you will. And honestly, that's where we get new potato products from, is we take specialized potato seed, but it's basically potatoes that they plant back into the ground that start sprouting and beginning new growth. And so by keeping them cool, dark, and in our case with our big storage is a lot of humidity, they keep in a dormant stage, and that's why they don't start waking up or sprouting or any of that kind of stuff. So
right. Yeah. So like right now, I should definitely be putting them in my garage here in Indiana. It would be like the perfect ideal conditions. Right now I just have them in my pantry. But if if a bunch of stuff gets stacked on top of them or something, exactly what you're explaining with the sprouting, that will totally happen. But, hey, here's the other strategy, folks. Just eat them quickly and it won't matter, you don't. But...
That's exactly right. Just eat them and buy more.
Oh, I love it. So affordability of potatoes. I mean, I really don't think that it can be stated enough. Potatoes are the ultimate choice in the produce department when you're shopping on a budget, consciously or unconsciously. Like you're getting a good deal when you're buying potatoes. And even if potatoes in a worst case scenario were in a situation where the market would drive the price significantly up, even if it were like a double the price increase, it still would be, pound for pound, ounce for ounce, one of the most affordable choices in the produce department.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, produce in general, yes, there's some exotic stuff and things that are a little pricier, but I think produce in general is for the health conscious aspect of it. I mean, you think you go buy 5 pounds of a soda pop compared to 5 pounds of potatoes or 5 pounds of apples. I mean, the health benefit and the cost all the way along is so much better. But potatoes, because they're so versatile, and the health aspect of potatoes, which sometimes obviously is really misunderstood, of how healthy they are, there really is very few things that can be such a good buy as potatoes.
Well, so tell us a little bit more about what everyone at Wada Farms, knows and lives by when you're promoting potatoes to grocers and chefs and everyone else. What are some of the marquee health benefits that the humble potato has?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people don't realize there's actually numerous benefits of a potato. A potato has more potassium per serving than a banana.
Wow.
One potato has 45% of our daily needs of vitamin C. Potatoes are a great source of vitamin B6. They have antioxidants in them, which people didn't know. People will say, oh, wait, they're carbos. Yeah, but they're the good carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go on and you read about carbohydrates, there's kind of good ones and there's not so good ones. Potato is a great one for energy. A lot of athletes are using potatoes now. We know of some of the long over distance bikers, for instance, that are carrying little pre-cooked small potatoes in a pouch that they're popping as they're riding their bike.
How cool is that?
Those carbohydrates are great. Potatoes have been given the seal from the Heart Institute because they're fat-free, they're cholesterol-free.
Yeah.
They have the heart check, exactly. Yeah. So it is. That's why I say most people have no idea of the great health benefit that potatoes offer. In fact, I was reading some interesting facts. Back in the gold rush days, potatoes were actually traded for gold because the miners knew that, the miners knew the great well-being of potatoes, and potatoes were used as a commodity for trade for a short time. And they're healthy for dieting. People will say, oh, wait a minute, they're not, potatoes are a great health food. It's when people pile on the butter and all the other stuff that kind of adds the calories.
And that's what that's exactly what I'm going to do tonight when I'm dining out and I order the baked potato.
That's exactly what I do. But, for dieting and stuff, my wife loves a baked potato with cottage cheese on the top.
Yes, that is so good.
Because the baked potato only has about 110 calories.
Yep.
It's really a low-calorie food. Gluten-free. Really is a great nutritional, healthy food.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, I love it. Well, Kevin, this has been such a spud-tastic episode. But in all seriousness,
well, anytime I get on with Mom,
yeah, that's right. In all seriousness,
I'm on the phone with Mom. We got to be good there. But it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to join you today.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And any closing remarks or any other fun facts that you want to share, now's the time, because all of our guests get the final word on the show. So you're actually going to sign us off. And before I throw the mic back to you for those closing remarks, I just want to thank everyone for being with us today. I want to thank everyone at Wada Farms, the whole team. It's just, these are some of the nicest people in the entire produce industry that I've ever met. So good people behind this great brand. And you guys can learn more at wadafarms.com. And of course, through all the content that we've done in partnership with this brand on theproducemoms.com. But Kevin, with that, you get the closing remarks.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on Lori and her team. The relationship that we've had over the years, it's just as Lori's explained, it's been wonderful. She does a wonderful job in promoting produce and the health and the benefits that it brings to all of our lives. And I guess in closing, obviously, keep eating those potatoes. We love it. And most importantly, I hope all stay well and safe during this holiday season, and a blessing that all of us can have definitely a better 2021 than we did 2020, because things have only got to get better. So again, thank you very much and appreciate being here.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to Lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.